For the best performance of your Torqeedo motor, you're going to want the ball and the boom rest to be positioned in such a way that the angle will put the motor the furthest back away from the back of the boat. You notice I have maybe 3/16 of an inch here of the motor shaft sticking out above the steering coupling. That drops it down as low as I can get it. And I also have the boom. I've got maybe 3/8 of an inch right there sticking out. Now you can play with this and try to get it best to what suits you, but for my purposes, I like to have it all pretty much extended as far as I can get it. And what I'll do is I'll place the boom in the boom cradle here. And what I want is, I want my motor shaft to hang directly in the center of the back of the tire. One thing I like to do when I'm mounting this this ball is, once I get one hole drilled or a couple holes drilled, I'll go ahead and screw the bolt into my drilled hole, just to keep these other holes or the ball from shifting back and forth, so that my pattern will be exact when I go to put my backing plate on the inside. That way I'm sure that everything's going to line up. Now they do leave you some extra space. These holes are drilled a little bit big, but the more precise you are with this, the better, I think. Okay, what I'm getting ready to do now is I'm getting ready to remove this access panel. It's really nice. Bonafide has this access panel here to get into, like, mount your your power anchor here, and I'm going to put the backing plate onto the ball. But this is a nice access panel. It's easy to get to, easy to gain access to the inside of the stern, and I'll just take these out real quick. And there you go. And this has a real nice gasket on it to keep it watertight. I love this feature. Love it. One thing I like to do, GoPro stop recording. When I put this backing plate on, I'll take a little bit of silicone and just kind of dab it in the middle here. Doesn't take much, just a little. What this will do is it'll hold this backing plate in place long enough for you to get your nuts and bolts and your washers all on your studs here. If you're reaching in there and you put that on and you got all this stuff in your hands, it's just a lot easier. So that's what I do. I just put a little silicone on it, and I'll stick it in there, get my bolts lined up. And I'll just press on it until it kind of dries a little bit. And there you go. And it's there. Now I can get my nuts and bolts and my washers on. Ball mount mounted. We have our boom rest mounted. And now we're going to install the boom. And I will tell you that I have somebody holding the motor shaft. So I'm making this look easy, but there's other ways of doing it. Now when you're installing these, the Allen heads go this way, facing away from the motor shaft, and the hex nuts go in behind, because this bracket is actually made to catch the hex head nut. And you don't tighten one side down all the way. You kind of tighten these up a little as you go until you get it mounted good. Okay guys, we're getting ready to run our plumbing for our cables that run to our foot pegs and eventually down to the Torqeedo motor for our steering. Here on the Bonafides, there's a flat spot right here in behind the foot peg braces here, and I'm using a 1/4 inch drill bit because I'm using 1/4 inch tubing, which is just ice maker tubing for a refrigerator. Works really well. And I'm just going to drill a hole right here in the flat spot that's already provided. And now we're going to flare our tubing so that when we put it in, it doesn't pull through the hole, and I'll show you that in just a second. Okay guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to flare our tubing. And what I do is, I've got me a little flat piece of metal right here that I can butt this up against once I get it heated. And all I do is heat the end of it. And it kind of peels back when you start heating it. Once I get it good and warm, I just press it to the metal. It flattens out good. If you don't get enough the first time, you want to work it a little bit. You don't think it's big enough to hold, you can keep going back and revisiting it. There you see how it flares it out. Now that will keep this tube from slipping down into this hole once we run our tubing to the back. So that's how I flare my tubing. Okay guys, what I'm going to do now is when we run our tubing, what I'm using is a piece of safety wire, and I will run this wire through the tubing. This will stiffen it up so that when I put it into the hole here and run it through, it'll be in a spot where I can reach it through the back hatch access back there. So just use a piece of stiff wire to stiffen that tubing out so you have some control about where it's going once you start feeding it through the hole. Okay guys, we have our tubing run. It's running into the back of the boat. I drilled a hole here, and you'll see this on the Bonafides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the tubing, put some pressure on it, and then I'm just going to clamp it off like so. Then I'm going to trim the tubing about 3/8 of an inch or a 1/2 inch out. I'll trim it off like that, and then I will take my lighter and actually flare it back here also. Okay guys, what I've got here, I've got my cable run through my back. I put me a piece of heat shrink on it. I've got this barrel kit. It comes with a little barrel end here that I'll put up around my foot peg. And this is a collar barrel that I will run my cable through and then back around through, and it'll cause it to be a loop like this. And I'll put my loop in it so that I can put it on my steering mechanism. What I'm going to do now guys, I'm starting to put the stop for my cable on, and there is a hole in your foot peg here that you run it through. Like so. Then I'll put a little piece of my shrink wrap on there. And then I put my stop on. And then now I'm sure they make a crimping tool for this, but I am using a pair of big channel locks, and they'll work. Now after you get this crimped, you want to make sure, I always just twist to see if this thing twists on your cable, you need to recrimp it. So this has got to be really tight, because what it does is it's a stop for this foot peg cable. And as you're pushing, it gets a lot of force sometimes, so you want to make sure that that's crimped really well on your cable. and this one is. So I'm going to put my heat shrink on, like so. And this just tidies it up and makes it look good. You
Hey
can do it
guys,
without it.
what we're getting ready to do now is I'm going to mount my throttle control for the Torqeedo 403 Ultralight. What I've done is, what I've chosen to do is I'm putting an 1.5 inch ball on the bottom of the controller itself. You see that? And these screws here, I'm not sure what size they are. You might be able to find them in the specs, in the installation sheet. I'm not sure about that. But this ball will screw right onto the bottom of it. It's a little offset, but it's not enough to really affect the performance of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this ball on the bottom of it, and I've taken, of course, the ram mount double ball joint, and I've taken a ram mount claw, and I put it, this is a really nice spot. I mean, it just screams for mounting something on it on these seats. These seats are awesome anyway, but having these things here, it gives you a whole different range of things that you can do. And then what I'll do is I'll insert this like so. And then I'll just take my throttle control now. What this is going to allow me to do is when I'm in the seat, everything's going to be right there at my fingertips. Okay guys, that pretty much does it for our installation of the 403 Ultralight on our Bonafide SS127. This is an amazing motor. I really like it. I'm proud to be a part of the Torqeedo team. I know that you guys have probably heard about the incident at Kentucky Lake where we had an angler who capsized. Guys, wear your PFD at all times. It doesn't matter if you're whether you're competing or just out paddling. It's probably one of the biggest safety issues we have in this sport. We fish in very dangerous conditions sometimes. Always wear it. If he hadn't, then he probably wouldn't be here now. Support your local chapter of HOW. It's Heroes on the Water. It's a great organization. And take someone fishing. Get them involved in this sport. It's a great sport. It's a wonderful sport. It's therapy. It's a lot of things all wrapped up in one. So be safe out there, and I'll see you on the water.